Buonasera e bentornati con un'altra puntata di London Calling e questa sera, ve l'avevo già anticipato, parleremo di un'iniziativa molto interessante, un podcast realizzato dalla Transport for London in occasione dei 160 anni di questa grande organizzazione che ha connesso la città di Londra con metropolitane, bus, e su London One Radio voi potete ascoltare, you can listen on London One Radio, the new podcast by Transport for London, Mind the Gap, hosted by Tim Dunn, who is the British railway historian. Hello, Tim, how are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me.
Happy Christmas, I was saying to you. How was your Christmas?
Oh, mine was lovely. I've come out to the suburbs, out to the far metropolitan line, to the very far end of it, to come and see my family who live out this way. So I've
Lovely.
been connected by the tube.
Lovely. Metropolitan as well. I'm on the Metropolitan Arrow area. Yes.
Oh, you lucky thing.
Yes.
It's don't tell anyone. It's my favorite.
It is.
It's my
Even
favorite.
for me, it's so magical because you have a lot of these green areas and it's quite accessible to go to the center of London. It's just 30 minutes, for example, from Harrow on the Hill. It's quite easy to get there.
Yeah, we're talking nerdy things already. I know. We're talking train times already on this. But that's what's so funny, right, about this podcast is that it brings out, I think, this love, this innate love that so many of us have, no matter how long we've been in London, or no matter where we come from, or wherever we're going to, or wherever we live in London. People position themselves in London compared to the nearest tube stop. And I think because it's such an international, iconic map and a system, you immediately go, okay, my place in that big flag for London, that big map, that is where I am.
That's true.
And you position it. I love it because of it.
I agree.
I'm doing it too.
But tell us more how everything started. How did you get this idea? Was this one of your ideas with Transport for London?
Oh, well, did you know, I mean, I've been working with TFL for many years, on and off, because I think a few years ago, I volunteered at the museum in Covent Garden. And when you volunteer for a museum, you do it because of love, right? You do it because you want to share your love with the people who are there. And I think that what I love is just how many people, so many people came in and said, oh, we love what you stand for, and the fact that you're trying to connect people and places together. And that's what we did. We connected people and places. And we had an idea about a year ago. Wouldn't it be nice to do a podcast? Because not everyone has time necessarily to sit down and watch a television program. Because I do a program about abandoned tube stations on television as well, called Secrets of the London Underground, which we explore abandoned tube stations. That's quite niche. But everyone goes on a commute, right? Everyone's got an iPod, everyone's got headphones. And I wanted to hear from people who use it, who run it, who go to the weirdest places. And if there are 1.5, 2 million people every day who use the tube, that's 2 million different stories every day. And I wanted to hear more about the people that use it and why they use it. And that's what unites us.
Incredible. I'm going to translate a little bit to our listeners. Quello che sta dicendo Tim è che è incredibile, ha avuto questa idea insieme alla TFL, lui ha collaborato anche in passato, era un volontario di un museo a Covent Garden e hanno avuto l'idea di realizzare un podcast perché effettivamente quando noi viaggiamo ci piace ascoltare la musica oppure ascoltare nuove storie, quindi in occasione di questi 160 anni hanno realizzato questo podcast che, come vi dicevo, potete anche ascoltare su London One Radio con diversi episodi. And I think one of the most greatest thing about this podcast while I was listening to it is that it's not recorded into a studio, but the studio is the underground. That's authentic.
It's crazy. It was a good idea at the time. We thought it was a clever idea, but my goodness, it is so difficult. It is so difficult being underground and trying to record, but it really gives you a feel of being down there. And one of the episodes, the final episode, is the radio and television presenter Rylan Clark, who also loves the tube, like me. And he said to me a long time ago, Tim, if you ever do anything, I'd love to come with you. And so I thought, I'll call in that favour. And so so he and I recorded ourselves with a producer, a lovely woman called Marnie. And Marnie, our
Right.
producer, came down and she recorded us on the tube train in the
Oh
back
my
cab.
God. Yes, because I listened to it. I mean, that's so magical. I mean, I think it's a dream came true.
Yeah, yeah. And then,
But one of the story by Rylan, I don't know if that was true. Did he design the Rylan line?
yeah, no, really, it's
No
true.
way.
So he has actually, in his back garden in Essex, he has turned his garage, his car garage, he's had the inside of it all redone up on the inside. And it has these lines, his is the purple, the Rylan line, and all the stops that are underneath the stop where he is, the Rylan line, underneath are where the stops of the radio or television programs he's done, and the ones above the word Rylan are where he's going to next, are the ones he wants to go and do,
Oh, well,
which I think is lovely. So that there's
it
past and
is.
future.
Have you been there?
I haven't seen it for myself. He has promised me a look at it, and that's the next thing to go and do. But we even took a steam train. So there's part of the old tubes network at Epping, from Epping to Ongar, on the top north east of the tube map is an old underground railway, which is now a steam railway for heritage trains. And they let us get on board their steam engine and drive the last bit of the journey on an old underground line on an old steam engine.
No
And
way.
so
Did you drive with Rylan?
we didn't. The driver and the fireman and the crew were there, and we got to pull the whistle. And so there's me and him going down the tracks, pulling the whistle and
No way.
laughing. But you say it's difficult being on location. Our poor producer is like, "Oh my goodness, how are we going to do this?" We're on a steam train. So this is not your normal podcast. This is about going down the tunnels, into places, and taking the listeners, taking everyone with us to experience the weird, the crazy, the wonderful, the lovely, and showing, I think as well, that even the normal places we go to, even the normal tube stops, Tottenham Court Road or Harrow or whatever tube station you and I might use every day, there is always something interesting to find
There
and
is.
look at and discover.
I know. Let me tell to our listeners as well. Quindi, per chi si sta ascoltando in questo momento e si è collegato anche dall'Italia, noi siamo con Tim Dunn, che è un bravissimo presentatore qui in Gran Bretagna e ha realizzato questo podcast insieme alla TFL. Ci sta dicendo che uno degli ultimi podcast è molto divertente perché è insieme a Rylan Clark, che è uno dei più grandi presentatori televisivi e anche radiofonici qui in Gran Bretagna, e hanno viaggiato all'interno di questo vagone di un treno antichissimo che ha messo a disposizione la stessa TFL per loro per realizzare questo episodio. Raccontava Rylan anche di quanto sia affezionato alla TFL, tanto da realizzare in casa sua, nella zona dell'Essex, una linea a lui dedicato che ricorda proprio l'Underground Station. Però le prossime stazioni che lui ha realizzato in casa sua riguardano proprio tutti i programmi televisivi che ha già fatto e poi quelli che lui vorrebbe fare. Una cosa fantastica, magica. You know, while I was listening to your podcast, I was saying to myself, can you imagine this city without the underground? I mean, that would be like crazy. I remember last time when there was the biggest strike in London.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, if you think about lots of Italian cities,
Yes.
that have their own metro or tram networks now, right?
Yeah.
Most of those in Italy are on the tram rather than the metro or subway. Imagine those cities without those networks now. I think as well in London, you can't imagine it. And one of the big truth matters we get to is that actually I would not exist if it wasn't for the underground, because my grandparents met on a tube station. I would not exist as a human being if it wasn't for the underground. But so much of our daily lives, you know, the flow in and out.
Yeah.
We all know that London is really the powerhouse of Britain in so many ways, and all of us who work in London do so much towards building both the economy of the UK and the rest of the continent as well, and helping it along, and the tourism economy, and bringing people in, bringing people out, and servicing those who want to visit and so on. And one of our contributors, who is her name is Amy LeMay, and she is the Night Tsar. So she represents all of the people like you sometimes and me. We work at night, you know, and we have long hours, we work in the evenings, and we rely quite often on the tube network to get us to and fro from the night tube. They connect us. And what I love about the tube is that no matter whichever tube you go on, wherever you are, you know you are travelling with all types of Londoner and people from all over the world. And it's like it's a micro version of London in your tube carriage, wherever you travel. And so you can hear different voices, you hear different languages, you see different people from different cultures. And a trip on the tube can often be like a journey through the entire world, like any trip in London. And
That's true.
I love that about the tube.
Like, for example, if you go to Tottenham Court Road, you can see also some type of, I think, mosaic by Enrico Paolozzi. He's Italian. Yeah.
The Paolozzi mosaics. Oh my God, they are some of the most incredible mosaics. You know about those? Of course you do. Of
Yes,
course you know about them. Of course you do.
they're so colorful. I mean, that's what we love about the tube, because it's even easy, especially if you are a tourist. I mean, I remember coming in London as a tourist for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, this is so crowded. How am I gonna get there? But it was so easy because of the tube map. I mean, now talking about the tube map, very interesting your episode with the tube mapper, who is a
Oh, Luke.
photographer instead.
Yeah, the lovely Luke. So Luke, he's episode 1, and we wanted to identify throughout this series, I suppose, the theme of this series about how people love the tube in different ways, and Luke loves the architecture of the tube. And you might think, oh, if you love the architecture, we might go somewhere that's got amazing designs of things, maybe like Tottenham Court Road, where the Paolozzi mosaics are. Or maybe we might go to somewhere, say, like Harrow on the Hill. Luke said, no. I want to choose Bank Station. I was like, Bank? That's not a good architecture. He's like, oh, no. For me, it is. And so he took us down there, and because he's a photographer, he sees things that you or I might not spot. And so what is so lovely about this series is Luke or other people showing us reasons why they love the tube. And through their experiences, I think you get a different way of understanding there are more ways to love the tube than you might have previously thought. So Luke's attitude towards it is, look, you can see the symmetry in Bank Station. I always say this, but the tube is not a British thing. The tube is truly a multicultural, international, cosmopolitan mix of so many cultures, of people who designed it from abroad, is really a celebration of international culture. And that's really what the tube is to me.
Last but not least, Tim, what's your, favorite station that you still love since you were a child? And what's also an old and secret pathway that we can explore with TFL?
They're two great questions. Two great questions. And my favourite station, Baker Street. Because
Yes.
Baker Street has got it looks like it used to back in 160 years ago.
That's true.
And if you look on the ceiling, if you're on the Hammersmith and City line, and you're on the Circle line, if you look up, you can see on the roof the smoke on the top.
Of the engine.
And yes, from steam trains, because 10 years ago we actually ran some steam trains down there again for a bit of some tours, and so you can still see where the smoke used to be on the ceiling. I also love a secret thing that two secret things you can do. One of them is at Bank Station. This is free of charge. You can walk between what's it called, the Waterloo and City line, and the main Bank Station. There's a single pathway a tunnel that runs, and halfway up this pathway is this bright red painted bit of metal, like a circle, and that is the old cutting face. It's the old cutting teeth that used to cut through all the clay back in the 1890s, 1900s. They've left it there from when they dug the tunnel originally. So you can kind of walk through the original equipment that it's just a very small piece and you can still walk through it. I love that.
Ragazzi, avete capito? Quindi c'è un passaggio segreto che voi stessi potete visitare right now senza l'aiuto di nessuno. Se voi andate a Bank Station, nella zona di Waterloo and City, c'è un tunnel che vi porta indietro nel passato, vi fa vedere come è stata costruita quella stazione. Poi con Tim abbiamo parlato anche di altri episodi che voi potete ascoltare anche su London One Radio nel podcast della Transport for London Mind the Gap, come con questo incontro insieme a Tube Mapper, che è un fotografo fantastico e lui riesce a catturare le bellezze di ogni stazione della metropolitana di Londra, come ad esempio a Bank. Nessuno darebbe neanche un centesimo per la stazione di Bank perché non è così bella forse come Baker Street, però grazie all'occhio specializzato di questo fotografo si riesce a vedere anche la simmetria di questa stazione. Tube Mapper si trova anche on Instagram, so you can also visit. I was just doing a briefing of what we said so far, Tim. So thank you very much for being with us and exploring with you the underground. And I hope that through this podcast, also other authorities can actually not undervalue the value and the pride of this beautiful organization, and they can give a little bit more in order to avoid all these strikes, and preserve TFL and preserve our underground in London, because it's quite important for us as commuters.
Hugely important. And if you want to download the podcast, you can go on search engines and type in Mind the Gap Tube, and you can type into your normal podcast platform. Apparently it was number 1 last week.
Oh my goodness!
So
yes,
like,
because you released also the last episode with Rylan, so it was so. And on London One Radio you can find it as well, because we have it on our podcast section.
Oh, thank you.
So, yes, of course. So on London One Radio they can listen to it very quickly. They click and they go on Spotify and they can listen to your episodes.
Oh, it's a privilege to talk to you. It really is. Thank you so much. And I want to wish everyone a happy Christmas and a really great New Year.